I still remember that moment as if it were etched in fire. The moment at my wife's family dinner when, amidst laughter and clinking glasses, they sneered, "You're so dumb," as if my worth could be measured by a single word. In that instant, my heart pounded with humiliation, and every eye in the room seemed to confirm that I was an object of ridicule. Yet, beneath that searing shock, a quiet resolve began to build, a resolve that would soon change everything. I leaned back, smiled calmly, and in a single offhand remark casually mentioned, "By the way, my portfolio's now worth $3 million. That statement, unexpected and disarming, would set the stage for the rest of my journey. I had always believed that family dinners were a time for warmth, laughter, and shared stories, a sanctuary from the challenges of everyday life. Yet, that evening, as I entered the dining room adorned with extravagant decor and filled with the chatter of relatives, the atmosphere felt charged with an undercurrent of condescension. My wife, sitting at the head of the table, greeted everyone with practiced cheer, but as soon as the conversation turned to my career and interests, subtle jibes began to surface. It wasn't long before someone, perhaps emboldened by the convivial setting or a desire to impress, blurted out that I was dumb. Their laughter and knowing looks struck me like a blow. It was as though all my efforts, my hard-earned accomplishments, were being reduced to a single dismissive insult. At first, I felt a rush of indignation and a tinge of hurt that threatened to overwhelm me. I had spent years working diligently, investing time, energy, and even sacrifice into building my career and nurturing a passion for smart investments. I had never imagined that, in a room full of family, my intellect would be so casually dismissed. But as the laughter died down, a calm clarity took hold. I knew that my worth wasn't defined by the opinions of those who failed to see the value in hard work and perseverance. Instead of reacting with anger or retreating into silence, I decided to seize the moment with a quiet, confident declaration that would forever change the tone of the evening. With a relaxed smile and a tone as casual as if discussing the weather, I mentioned, "By the way, my portfolio is now worth $3 million. The room fell silent, and for a few charged seconds, every eye turned toward me. The initial shock in their expressions soon gave way to a mixture of disbelief and reluctant admiration. In that moment, I transformed an insult into an opportunity, a chance to reclaim my narrative and remind everyone that true intelligence and success are measured by tangible achievements, not by baseless mockery. That single remark wasn't intended as a boast, but as a statement of fact, a quiet yet definitive assertion that I had worked hard to build a future of my own, independent of their narrow judgments. The conversation shifted, and though some awkward laughter followed, the tone of the evening began to change. I could see a flicker of uncertainty in the faces of those who had derided me, as if my simple words had forced them to reconsider their assumptions. It was a moment of subtle retribution, one that didn't seek to humiliate but rather to highlight that my journey had been far more complex and meaningful than a single insult could ever capture. In the days and weeks that followed, I found myself reflecting deeply on that pivotal moment. I recalled every detail of that family dinner, the way the light glinted off the crystal glasses, the soft hum of conversation abruptly interrupted by a careless remark, and the mixture of pity and arrogance in their eyes. I began to realize that their mockery was less about me and more about their own insecurities, their inability to see beyond superficial measures of success. My portfolio, built with sweat and sacrifice, was not just a number, it was a testament to the grit, intelligence, and resilience that I had cultivated over years of hard work. And in that realization, I discovered a profound sense of self-worth that no one's condescension could diminish. As I processed the events of that evening, I started to channel my emotions into action. I revisited my goals and re-examined the investments and strategies that had brought me success. Every report I read and every meeting I attended reminded me that I was in control of my own destiny. I began to document my journey in a personal journal, writing down not just the events of that dinner, but the cascade of emotions that followed, the initial sting of humiliation, the gradual shift toward resolve, and the ultimate surge of empowerment that had propelled me forward. I also took the opportunity to reconnect with those who had always believed in me, the colleagues, the mentors, the friends who knew that my value wasn't defined by a moment of weakness. Their encouragement and shared memories of our hard-won victories filled me with renewed energy. I started discussing new ideas, potential projects, and the exciting possibilities that lay ahead. Slowly, I realized that I had the power to turn any negative experience into a catalyst for growth. That night's insult, which had initially felt like a deep betrayal, had instead ignited a determination to succeed beyond the narrow confines of their expectations. In that way, my wife's family dinner became a turning point, a moment when I decided to no longer allow the opinions of others to dictate my self-worth. It was the night when I learned that sometimes, the best way to silence criticism is not to argue, but to simply live your truth. Every subsequent day became a testament to that truth. Every business meeting, every investment decision, every small personal victory was a quiet declaration that I was more than the sum of their dismissive words. As I stand on the threshold of new beginnings, I realize that dinner was not the end but rather the start of a journey of self-reclamation. I learned that true intelligence isn't measured by the ease with which someone can dismiss your ideas, but by the courage to continue pursuing your vision despite that dismissal. My $3 million portfolio wasn't just a number, it was a symbol of the triumph of persistence over prejudice, of ambition over apathy. And as I continue to build a future defined by my own standards, I carry with me the memory of that moment as both a wound and a badge of honor. A reminder that from the ashes of humiliation, a stronger, more determined self can rise. In the weeks following that fateful dinner, I plunged headlong into a journey of reinvention. Every day felt like a battle fought on two fronts, one waged against the echoes of their dismissive laughter and the other against the self-doubt that threatened to consume me. I began to channel the sting of that insult into raw, unyielding energy. The memory of their callous, dumb remarks served as a constant reminder. I would no longer let anyone define my worth. I devoted myself to expanding my financial acumen, meticulously studying market trends, investment strategies, and the secrets behind building a successful portfolio. Long evenings in front of spreadsheets and financial reports became my crucible, a space where I transformed anger into actionable goals. My daily routine underwent a radical shift. Mornings that once began with a heavy heart were now greeted with determination. I'd wake before dawn, lace up my sneakers and hit the pavement, running through the quiet streets while my thoughts ran as fast as my legs. Each stride was a meditative affirmation that I was in control of my destiny. The rhythm of my run helped to push away the bitter memories and replace them with a surge of motivation. I began to see that every drop of sweat was a step away from the past and a stride toward a brighter, self-made future. At work, I threw myself into projects with a newfound intensity. I enrolled in advanced courses on financial management and investment, attending seminars and workshops that stretched my limits and broadened my perspective. I revisited old business plans and refined every detail of my strategy, determined to prove to myself, and to everyone else, that I was more than the sum of their scornful words. Every late night at the office, every meeting where I presented new ideas with unwavering confidence, served as a counterpoint to that humiliating toast. I wasn't just working to prove a point, I was building a legacy brick by meticulous brick. I also sought the wisdom of mentors who had once been in my shoes. Over countless cups of coffee in quiet cafes, I listened to seasoned investors and successful entrepreneurs share stories of their own setbacks and comebacks. Their insights were invaluable. They taught me that every failure was merely a precursor to success, that every rejection was a stepping stone, and that true intelligence wasn't measured by a single moment of mockery, but by the resilience to rise again. I began to incorporate their advice into my strategies, diversifying my investments and exploring innovative business opportunities. Slowly I watched my portfolio grow. The number in my bank account, once a symbol of my humble beginnings, began to climb steadily, a tangible measure of my hard work and perseverance. As my professional life surged forward, I realized that I also needed to heal personally. I couldn't let the wounds of that family dinner continue to dictate my self-esteem. I turned to therapy, seeking guidance to untangle the complex web of emotions that had ensnared me in the aftermath of that humiliating event. In my sessions, I learned to confront the deep-seated insecurities that had made me vulnerable to others' judgments. My therapist helped me understand that my value wasn't determined by the opinions of a few shallow voices, but by the strength of my character and the integrity of my actions. Over time, the sessions became a safe haven where I could unpack my pain, learn from it, and eventually let it fuel my growth rather than my despair. Simultaneously, I began reconnecting with parts of myself that had been sidelined for far too long. I dusted off old hobbies, picking up my guitar again, losing myself in the melodies and the solace of music. I revisited the pages of books that had once sparked my imagination and challenged my thinking. I even started documenting my journey through a blog, pouring my raw, unfiltered thoughts onto the digital page. The act of writing was cathartic. It forced me to face my emotions head-on and transform them into insights and lessons that could help others facing similar hardships. The blog began to attract readers, people who resonated with my story and found hope in my words. Their messages of encouragement became a quiet chorus of support that further bolstered my resolve. As I balanced these personal endeavors with the relentless demands of my career, I started to notice subtle changes in my interactions with others. At meetings, my voice carried a newfound conviction that silenced any lingering doubts. Colleagues who once glanced at me with pity now looked at me with respect, and even those who had doubted my potential began to acknowledge my determination. Every success, however small, a successful pitch to a skeptical investor, a positive review from a financial advisor, or an encouraging comment on one of my blog posts, was a building block of the identity I was forging. I was proving to myself that my dreams were not mere fantasies but achievable goals, attainable through hard work, resilience, and an unwavering belief in my own worth. The transformation wasn't instantaneous. It was a slow, deliberate process that unfolded day by day. There were moments when the old wounds would flare up, when a familiar song or a stray comment would transport me back to that painful dinner and make my chest tighten with old grief. In those moments, I would pause, take a deep breath, and remind myself of the progress I had made. I had learned to accept the past as a series of lessons rather than as a chain that bound me to regret. I recognized that while the memory of being called dumb would never completely vanish, it no longer held the power to dictate my future. Instead, it had become a distant echo, a reminder of where I had been and a motivation for where I was headed. During this period, I also took steps to fortify my financial independence. I began diversifying my investments, exploring new avenues for growth, and even setting up a small fund for future business ventures. I realized that my financial well-being was in my hands, and I took every opportunity to educate myself further on wealth-building strategies. Every additional dollar earned was a silent testament to the power of persistence, a counterweight to the derisive words that had once belittled my efforts. My portfolio, once modest and overlooked, gradually transformed into a robust indicator of my success, a financial beacon that not only validated my hard work but also reassured me that I was, indeed, more than enough. I started attending networking events with a sense of purpose and excitement. These gatherings, once intimidating and filled with judgmental glances, became opportunities to share my story and connect with like-minded individuals who had experienced their own trials and triumphs. I found that many were inspired by the idea of turning personal betrayal into a launching pad for success. Conversations flowed naturally as I recounted the journey from humiliation to empowerment, and each exchange reinforced the belief that my past did not define me, it refined me. Every evening, after long days filled with both professional achievements and personal growth, I would sit in my study, the soft glow of my desk lamp illuminating the pages of my journal. There, I would record my thoughts, the challenges I faced, and the small victories that compounded into major milestones. I wrote about the bittersweet process of transformation, the moments when despair gave way to hope, and the quiet, almost imperceptible shift in my self-worth. Over time, those journal entries became a tapestry of my evolution, a detailed record of how every obstacle, every hurtful word, had been transformed into fuel for my ascent. As I neared the end of this phase, I began to understand that the journey was as important as the destination. I wasn't simply building a successful career or a robust investment portfolio, I was rediscovering who I was at the core, a person defined by resilience, intelligence, and the courage to forge his own path, regardless of others' opinions. My life was no longer a series of reactive moments but a proactive quest to design a future filled with purpose, creativity, and unabashed self-love. By the time I reached the cusp of what felt like a major breakthrough, I could see clearly the trajectory of my transformation. My newfound confidence, the strength of my investments, and the steady accumulation of small victories had all converged to create a life that was unmistakably my own. I had taken the sting of being called dumb and turned it into a driving force, a force that propelled me to reimagine my career, rebuild my identity, and redefine what it meant to be truly successful. The journey had not been easy. It had been marked by moments of doubt, loneliness, and raw vulnerability. Yet each of those moments had contributed to the person I was becoming, a person who knew that true intelligence and worth were measured not by the opinions of a few, but by the relentless pursuit of one's dreams. That fateful day, when I saw the reflection of my triumph in the boardroom's glass walls and realized that my business had blossomed into something extraordinary, felt like a rebirth. I had endured a journey marked by betrayal and bitterness, the sting of watching my wife steal my idea and mock me in public. But today I stood as living proof that resilience transforms even the deepest wounds into the foundations of success. I remember the day clearly. It was an overcast morning, the sky a muted gray as if nature itself was both mourning and heralding new beginnings. I stepped into our newly modernized headquarters, a space that bore the marks of relentless work and visionary changes, and felt an overwhelming surge of pride. Our once dismissing critics were now witnessing a company that had not only recovered but was thriving in a competitive market. Every corner of that building told a story: the re-engineered product development lab where our prototype evolved into a market-leading innovation, the conference room now filled with passionate team members whose ideas drove our success, and even the break room where laughter and camaraderie replaced the cold, dismissive silence of our past. I realized then that what once was meant to humiliate me had become my greatest motivator. In the months that followed, our venture grew exponentially. I forged strategic partnerships and secured critical investments that validated our business model. I remember signing a multi-million-dollar contract with a major client, a contract that not only doubled our revenue projections but also sent ripples through the industry. It wasn't just about the money, it was a confirmation that the idea I had nurtured in the depths of betrayal had turned into something real and impactful. Every investor call, every product launch, every award at industry events affirmed that my hard work and unwavering belief in my vision had been worth every sleepless night and every painful memory. But as the company soared, I found that the personal victory was not solely in financial success. It was in the metamorphosis of who I had become. I had spent years doubting myself, of letting hurtful words define my worth. I had felt invisible at family gatherings and belittled in moments when my ideas were dismissed. Now I embraced the scars of my past as badges of honor. I realized that the laughter I once heard in that stuffy dining room, mocking my intelligence and my dreams, was not the end of my story but the spark that ignited a fire within me. Every challenge I encountered along the way had forced me to develop a deeper understanding of my own resilience, and that inner strength became the cornerstone of my identity. I began mentoring young entrepreneurs who, like me, had been underestimated. Over cups of coffee and during late-night brainstorming sessions, I shared not only strategies for financial success but also the emotional lessons I'd learned along the hard road of reinvention. Don't let anyone define you, I would say. Your worth is in your perseverance and your willingness to rise every time you fall. Their stories of struggle and eventual breakthrough reminded me that every person has the power to transform pain into purpose. And as my mentor flourished, I saw a reflection of my own journey in their successes, a cycle of empowerment that spread far beyond my personal sphere. Socially, I had also rebuilt a network that celebrated authenticity and grit. I reconnected with old friends and made new ones, people who saw me not as the man my ex-wife had dismissed, but as a visionary and a leader in my own right. At gatherings, the conversation naturally gravitated toward our accomplishments. I listened with quiet satisfaction as some confessed that my journey had inspired them to take risks and to trust in their own potential. Their admiration was not a means to rub salt in old wounds, but a gentle reminder that I had forged something lasting out of heartbreak. Amid these professional triumphs, I continued to nurture the quieter parts of my soul. I returned to solitary walks at dawn and evenings filled with reflective journaling. I found that the early mornings, when the city was still wrapped in a peaceful silence, allowed me to process the past without pain and to set intentions for the day ahead. I began practicing mindfulness, meditating on the realization that every moment, whether drenched in sorrow or lit with hope, was an essential part of my story. These moments of introspection deepened my self-awareness, reinforcing the understanding that I was the architect of my future, not defined by someone else's shallow judgments. There were still times when the memory of her dismissive words would rush back unexpectedly, when a conversation among friends mentioned my ex-wife's scornful remark or when I caught a fleeting glimpse of her in a public place. Instead of anger, I now felt a profound sense of calm. I recognized that those memories, while painful, had ultimately propelled me to excel. They no longer held power over me. Instead, they served as reminders of how far I had come and of the strength that lies within every setback. I had transformed the very essence of that hurt into the fuel for my ascent, proving to myself and to those who had once doubted me that my vision was indomitable. The final piece of my transformation came in the form of recognition, not from those who had belittled me but from the community I had built and the industry that now respected my work. I was invited to speak at high-profile conferences, where I recounted my journey with unguarded honesty. Standing on a stage before an audience of eager listeners, I shared the story of that one humiliating family dinner, the moment when I casually mentioned my $3 million portfolio, and how that single act had reshaped my destiny. The response was overwhelming. Applause, not of pity but of genuine admiration, filled the room, and I realized that I had turned my personal betrayal into a beacon of hope for others. As the years passed, I continued to expand my business and to invest in new ventures, each decision carefully guided by the lessons I'd learned from that bitter experience. I diversified my portfolio, entered emerging markets, and even launched a mentorship program for aspiring entrepreneurs. Every new venture was a reaffirmation of my ability to innovate and to rise above the limitations imposed by others. The once dismissive laughter that had haunted me was now replaced by an unyielding affirmation of my own capabilities. And then one clear day I received a message, a simple, unadorned message from my ex-wife. In it, she acknowledged the success I had achieved and, with a tinge of regret, admitted that she had been wrong all along. I read her words with a mix of quiet satisfaction and bittersweet pity. I realized that while her message might have been an attempt at reconciliation or closure, it did not change the fact that I had built my future on my own terms. I had taken the pain of betrayal, channeled it into purpose, and created a life that was a vivid testament to the power of resilience. I thanked her politely, but I knew that the true victory was mine, not because I had silenced her, but because I had proven to myself that my worth was not contingent on her approval. Now, as I sit in the twilight of a life reimagined, I reflect on the journey that transformed a moment of public mockery into a legacy of success. I have learned that the opinions of others are fleeting and that true validation comes from within. The scars of that past, once a source of unbearable pain, have become emblems of my strength. A reminder that even when the world tells you that you're not enough, you can rise, rebuild, and thrive. I stand here today as a testament to the fact that the human spirit, when fueled by passion and perseverance, can overcome the darkest of betrayals and emerge victorious. This is my story, a journey from humiliation to empowerment, from the echoes of dismissive laughter to the triumphant roar of success. I have built a future defined not by someone else's shallow judgments, but by my own vision, hard work, and unwavering determination. Every step of the way, I have proven that my worth is not measured by external validation but by the relentless pursuit of my dreams. And as I continue to write new chapters of my life, I do so with a heart full of gratitude, a mind sharpened by adversity, and the unshakable belief that no matter what obstacles may come, I will always find a way to rise.